So the title of this talk is Introducing Edge Slice Re-Rendering. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that we haven't really reached peak performance of doing dynamic rendering. And when I say dynamic rendering, I mean like A/B testing, personalization, localization, anything where you need to basically dynamic on the fly as the user is requesting a page, change something, anything. And I find it a little funny actually that a lot of us have moved towards static site generation or SSG to solve some of the performance limitations of server-side rendering or SSR. But the problem with us all running towards static site generation is just many sites still need that dynamic content. They still need to be able to do A/B testing or personalization of their products, of their homepage, of their banner, being able to do localization for different countries. Just there's a lot of need for being able to do dynamic content still. And the client-side solutions that a lot of people have kind of reached for using JavaScript often perform worse than the original server-side rendering that we were doing. Like combining static site generation and client-side JavaScript often perform worse. And Next is great because it lets you choose at a page level, do I want to do static site generation or server-side rendering? I can choose which kind of trade-offs I want to do. But what if we wanted to keep the performance of static site generation and also have the flexibility of server-side rendering? Is that possible? And I'm going to just kind of give you a little spoiler that, yeah, it actually is. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So I'm Jay Phelps, and I'm one of the co-founders at a company called Outsmartly, where we're trying to solve this problem. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at _Jay Phelps, so _JAYPHELPS. So let's just jump right in. Here is a site on a mobile Generation 4 browser that many of you are probably familiar with. It's the Next.js docs, right? And if we go over to the actual docs page, the getting started page, we've got this like banner right here, right? And it's advertising the Next.js conf, the thing you're watching right now. An interactive online experience by the community for everyone, free for everyone. But what if we wanted to change this, right? What if we wanted to be able to customize this either for personalization purposes, we wanted to do A/B testing, we wanted to be able to, let's say during the actual conference, we wanted to be able to change it with something informational. Like we could say live now, free for everyone going on right now, watch. Or we could actually put like the live title. So it could sync up with the talks and it could be updating what is the current title. Now you could do all this client side, but you either have to choose, do I not render this right away and people are going to have a less actionable thing or have content shifts or flashing stuff. And especially in the case of Next.js, it's not that big of a deal, right? But if this was e-commerce, some sort of product or something like that, that's not really a great, an acceptable solution. So let's kind of talk about what someone might do, right? Like if we wanted to do that customization. Well, today, most of you probably thinking about those two options, right? That client-side execution using that third-party library, and then the other one using origin-side execution to prevent CDN caching, and that's server-side rendering, right? And there's different. It's a really, really complicated space. So there's a lot of different variations on these same kind of basic takes, and there are still people innovating in these, but let's kind of take a step back from these performance issues and just say, what would actually be ideal? What would be our ideal mental model? I want to change this. Let's actually just kind of dive into the code for this then. Let's take a look. So we've got this notification component and we're passing in the headline and the href, the link we want to link to. And then we're also passing in some content, right? That message and then that register button, right? Okay, fair enough. If we actually go into the notification component itself, we see, again, those href, headline, and children, and then we can actually see exactly where they're being inserted, right? We can see the href is in the link. We can see that the headline has some JavaScript applied to it. It's calling to uppercase on whatever headline you pass in. And then we've got the children. The children are probably going to be JSX, right? React elements, they get rendered in there. So if we look at this code, the mental model for me personally has always kind of been, I wish I was able to do something kind of like this just in time. Like when the person's requesting it, I want to just override some of those props. Take the existing props, but then I can choose, I want to override it with a different headline or override the children or override both. And you can do that, right, with server-side rendering. And a lot of people do. The problem with that is the performance things, which I don't want to beat that to death. But so we want that mental model though. We want that mental model of server-side rendering, being able to change the props just in time. But we want to have the performance benefits of static site generation. Well, let's take a look at that code. What do we actually need to do? We don't want to do server-side rendering. What we actually want to do is just render just the things that change, right? If we change the headline, all we really want to do is call to uppercase on that new headline and then put it exactly where it should be on the page. Same thing with children. We change the children. We want to have the React elements that I pass in get rendered and then put exactly where it should be. We don't want to re-render the entire app. So really what we want to do is we want to re-render a tiny slice of the application, right? And whenever we start talking about slices and stuff like that, you should know a little bit about me. So I and the other folks at Outsmartly, we really love compilers. I'm a big compiler nerd myself. I talk about it a lot on Twitter. And so when I'm constantly thinking, how can I use compilers to make my life better and make the lives of other people better, right? The developer experience, because that's what I specialize in. So the natural thing to me when I start thinking about slices is static analysis. That is the solution to this problem that's been staring us in the face all along, right? We go back to that component, we see a bunch of work, and we could re-render the whole app, or we could just re-render the component, but that's still excess work that needs to be done. Really, we just want to re-render what changed, only what changed. We want to extract out. We want to statically analyze ahead of time your JavaScript code, and then extract out only the minimum amount of code that's necessary to surgically replace and update those things. So in the case of headline, we only need to run to uppercase, right? And then know exactly where it goes on the page. This kind of technique broadly is applicable to other compiler things, and it's called program slicing. We create slices of your code. And so, for example, you have 3 slices. So you got like the href slice and the headline slice and the children slice. We statically analyze that and we extract all the information out from the props that you pass in. So you can have the mental model of being able to override props at runtime when it's coming in. So, but we can't actually do this, right? You can't actually write, like, say, notification and then spread the, where do you get existing props? Like, all that stuff doesn't really, this doesn't really make sense. We need an abstraction for the ways to override these props. And case in point, that's what we're calling them. We're calling that abstraction an override. And what does an override look like? Well, it looks like this. This is a very, very, very simple kind of almost hello world type of override. So we've got the scope, which is the component name, the component we want to override. You would write this code. And then we've got a compute function. Inside here, you'll notice that it can be async. So you could go and fetch something from an API, and you can do caching and all that fun stuff if you wanted to, or you could embed the things you want to change directly in here. And here are the things, the actual override props that we're providing. We can provide anything we want. We don't have to, we could only do headline, we could only do children, we could only do href, we could do them all together, totally up to us. In this case, we're gonna say headline live now. And you'll notice I'm doing it all lowercase live now, but in reality, the program slice extracted out the 2 uppercase stuff, right? It knows that I need to do that. And if I have any branches in my code and all sorts of fun stuff. And then the children, we're providing some JSX. So in this case, we wanna say that you're live now, it's free for everyone, it's going on right now, you wanna watch it. We can pass in that headline, that children, and we can pass all that in as the first argument to that scope. We basically are saying, here's a diff for the first argument of the notification component. Apply that diff magically, somehow figure that out without actually re-rendering my app. Just re-render the slices. And that's an override. But there's a missing piece to all this that I haven't talked about yet, and that's where should all this run? We've got our slices, we've got our overrides. Where should we put this? Well, we've already established client-side JavaScript, not good for this sort of thing because we'll block the DOM from rendering. It won't be good. We've already established server-side rendering. It also has some caveats, right? We have trade-offs both ways. And there's still a place for both of these techniques, for server-side and client-side, but not for these sort of things, right? So no. Well, there's one more that we haven't yet talked about. And it's because it's fairly new. You haven't been able to do this historically. And we're going to do this at the edge. So we're going to do this actually in the CDN layer as close as possible to your actual users themselves. That way, we're able to cache your static assets. We're able to cache your statically generated HTML all at the edge and just apply those program slices as fast as possible. So we take all that all together, and we've been calling this technique edge slice re-rendering. And just like server-side rendering, we have an acronym, right? So it's ESR, or edge slice re-rendering. But unlike static site generation and unlike server-side rendering, you don't use edge slice re-rendering by itself. Case in point, it's called re-rendering, right? This is not rendering, it's re-rendering. And so you need to combine it with another technique, and usually that's with static site generation, but it doesn't have to be. It can be server-side rendering. So you do your static site generation ahead of time. We statically analyze your application. You're able to deploy that. We can cache that at the edge, and then we can apply that program slicing just in time to get the most performant benefits. So let's take a look at what actually happens if we went and deployed that override. So going back to here, here's just a reminder of what we're going to do. We've got this banner here. We're going to actually override it and change it to be live now, free for everyone going on right now. Now, just for fun, we're actually going to demonstrate this with 4 different techniques. We've got the baseline, which is static site generation, not applying those changes, no dynamic changes at all. Then we've got our edge slice re-rendering, our ESR, using Outsmartly. Then we've got server-side rendering with no API calls. And then we've got client-side, right, using a popular third-party client-side A/B testing tool to do this dynamic rendering. So let's go ahead and see how fast that works. This is on a 4G Moto device, by the way. So we can see that actually went really, really fast. So let's actually run this one more time, but we're going to slow it down. That way we can actually kind of pay attention. We'll see that the edge slice re-rendering from Outsmartly, it actually goes first. It actually beats the baseline just a little bit, just by a hair. And then the server-side rendering is not far behind. But what I really want you to pay attention to is the last one, the client-side, popular third-party client-side tool. You'll notice that it comes in correct, but then just shortly after, it's actually going to flash back to the original content right before it ends. And that happens a lot. That's because most of these tools are not really designed for the React client-side rehydration type of thing. So what's actually happening is the page is getting overwritten, the HTML, but then the JavaScript bundle for the next app is getting loaded asynchronously and then rehydrating up, blowing away those changes. So all that stuff has to get coordinated correctly. And it's possible to some extent to do it with these tools, but it's difficult, and you still have the performance issues of that third-party stuff. So the obvious winner in this case is the edge slice re-rendering. So that, in a high level, in about 15 minutes, is edge slice re-rendering, or ESR. One thing I do want to make very clear is that we're not trying to replace any of these things per se. So like, take a look at this. So these are all the things that work with. You can bring these things. You can bring your Google Optimize or your Optimizely. You just wouldn't use their client-side replacement. You'd use all their analytics and all their reporting, all their great variation selection. You just wouldn't use the client-side replacement. Same goes with Contentful, your Gatsby, your Next.js, with Vercel, with Netlify, whatever it is, you probably can use it. And right now we are enterprise ready. We're already in production with a number of companies, but very soon we're going to be basically doing a public developer access as well for folks who are not enterprise companies. So if you want to sign up for that, you can go to outsmartly.com/signup, and there's a form you can fill out. If you are interested, if you're an enterprise and you're interested in speaking more, you can either fill out the form, or you can probably just email us directly at hello@outsmartly.com. If you have any additional questions, during the conference we'll be in the Discord channel, and we also have a booth, so you're welcome to come take a look. And then asynchronously you can reach out to me at _jphelps on Twitter. So thank you very much.